Yes, so you make more devotees. Okay. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Janavallabha Girivardhari. Gopi Janavallabha Girivardhari. Jasoda Nandana Braja Janaranjana. Jasoda Nandana Braja Janaranjana. Jamunatira Vanachari. Jamunatira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Jasoda Nandana Braja Janaranjana. Jasoda Nandana Braja Janaranjana. Jamunatira Vanachari. Jamunatira Vanachari. Jamunatira Vanachari. Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Sri Radha Madhava ki, Sri Radha Giridhari ki, Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa, Varivrajika Jaja Shudra Sri Mad is Divine Grace, Abhai Charanaravinda Bhaktivedanta Swami, Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa, Varivrajika Jaja Shudra Sri Mad is Divine Grace, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati, Goswami Maharaj Prabhupada ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki Jai. Grantara Srimad Bhagavatam ki Jai. Samaveda Bhakti ki Jai. Gaura Premanande. Padaya Krishna Staya Vile Shrimad Bhaktivedanta Swami. Charanene Visheshu Shunyavari Pasyatade Shatarane. So this morning reading from the 5th canto, 1st chapter, 8th verse. Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskrijam Naram Jaiva Narotamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Mudirayat Nasta Preshabadeshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavatuttama Shlokya Bhakti Bhavati Naishtaki. So I'll read the Sanskrit. And thank you for the blessing. Now I know I'll be successful. I was fishing for that. Okay. And then we'll do the synonyms. And, well, maybe we won't do the synonyms. It's a little bit long. And then we'll get into the purport in verse. So tatra tatra jangana tala udupatiriva vimanavalavir anupatyam amara parivriddhar abhi pujamana patipaticha varushtata varutasha Siddha Gandharva Sajja Charana Munir Ganar Upagiyamano Gandha Mandana Dronim Avavashayam Upasarpa. Translation. As Lord Brahma descended on his carrier, the great swan, all the residents of the planets named Siddhaloka, Gandharvaloka, Sadyaloka and Charanaloka, as well as great sages and demigods flying in their different airplanes, assembled within the canopy of the sky to receive Lord Brahma and worship him. As he received respect and adoration from the residents of the various planets, Lord Brahma appeared just like the full moon surrounded by illuminating stars. Lord Brahma's great swan then arrived at the border of Gandhamadana hill and approached Prince Priyavrata, who was sitting there. Purport. It appears from this description that there is regular interplanetary travel between the planets of the demigods. Another significant point is that there is a planet covered mostly by great mountains, one of which is Gandhamadana hill. Three great personalities, Priyabrata, Narada, and Swayambhuva Manu, were sitting on this hill. According to Brahma Samhita, each universe is filled with different planetary systems, and every system has a unique opulence. For example, on Siddhaloka, all the residents are very advanced in the powers of mystic yoga. They can fly from one planet to another without airplanes or other flying machines. Similarly, the residents of Gandharvaloka are expert in musical science, and those on Sadyaloka are all great saints. The interplanetary system undoubtedly exists, and residents of different planets may go from one to another. On this earth, however, we have not invented any machine that can go directly from one planet to another, although an unsuccessful attempt has been made to go directly to the moon. Om Agyan Dimarandasya Gananjana Salakaya Chaksurun Minitam Ninataismai Sri Gurave Namaha. Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityanandasya Dvaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Vanchika Patarubhascha Kripa Sindhu Bevacha Patitanam Bhavanibho Vaishnavibho Namo Namaha. Well, with your good wishes and blessings, I'll try to say a few words. So, Prabhupada is referring to a verse in the Brahma Samhita. It's text 40 of chapter 5. This Yasya Prabha Prabhavato Jagaranda Koti Kotishvashesha Vasudari Vibhuti Binam Tad Brahma Nishkalam Anantamasesha Bhutam Govindamari Purusham Tamaham Bhajami. I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, whose effulgence is the source of the non-differentiated Brahman mentioned in the Upanishads, being differentiated from the infinity of glories of the mundane universe, appears as the indivisible, infinite, and limitless truth. So the words he's referring to here are this Koti Kotishva Ashesha Vasudhari Vibhuti Bhinam. That the Brahman effulgence, which is coming from Krishna, is different than what's in this material world. He's saying in the verse that this in this material world there are Jagadanda universes, Kotishu, millions and millions of universes, millions and millions of universes, and Ashesha means unlimited. Vasudhari Vibhuti Bhinam. And in all these different worlds there are all kinds of varieties and opulences going on. It's not all stagnant. It's different. So when you read a verse like this, especially someone not familiar with the broad scope of the Vedic literature, that there's just like now we have a global community. It's something that hundreds of years ago was unimaginable. When you wanted to go to very few people traveled outside of their probably a village or a few villages or town or whatever. Travel was not so easy and people just couldn't do that. What is that famous line? It's a famous line by Thoreau about... Anyways, he was noticing in one of his journals how the farmers in New England just toiling away their whole life, the farm, toiling away. And there's that famous saying about like a useless life or a life of hard work and toil or something like that, and they'll come to me. But just noticing that these people every day, they're just the same thing, just toiling away. So, but the idea of travel now, you can just hop on a plane. Now you can hop on a plane. You had to take a break for about a year there. But you can go anywhere you want on this planet practically. And there are people who do that, right? Adventure seekers and so on. They travel all over the place. Sometimes people even to make a point, they want to visit 100 or 200 countries. It's in their bucket list, all over, and experience the world, right? And then Prabhupada's referring in the last line of the purport here, how people look up at the heavens and they think, well, it would be nice to go to these different planets. If we could do that, what's that like, visiting different planets? So that urge is there, the desire is there. And the Vedic literatures are describing that there is not just a global community, but a universal community out there. All those different planets and stars, and they're all inhabited, and there's all kinds of living entities there. And the scope of this literature is describing many of those living entities and what they're doing. So life extends way beyond the earth. What was it Shakespeare said about the stars in the sky? The star-studded floor of heaven. In other words, the star-studded floor of heaven. Yeah, the floor of heaven. In other words, it's for us to look at. Everything is really just geocentric or human anthropocentric. And this is all there is. It's just us. And the idea that there any intelligent life or superior life outside of that, it's people have a hard time accepting that. Of course, I think when they do these Gallup polls and different polls, they find that most people do believe that there must be some type of extraterrestrial beings like that. But they very rarely portray them as being benign and beautiful and like the demigods. Usually they look like what? What do they look like? Tell me. Huh? What do they look like, though? Green? Green? What are their eyes like? big bulging eyes. Like they're maybe 3 fingers or something like that. So they don't portray them as like the demigod. Like here, the Charanas, Gandharvas, beautiful, beautiful people, little long like that. So let's moving on here. I mean, even on this planet, you have places of variegated, situations, environments. There are some places on this, even here in San Diego, there are certain neighborhoods you don't really want to go to, and there's certain neighborhoods they don't want you to come to, right? Unless you make a certain amount of money, right? Right? Gated communities, they call them. Gated communities. I went to one the other day up in Diamond Bar. I forgot to ask, where did that town get a name like Diamond Bar? But gated community, they actually they scan your driver's license before you can go in, and a few guards there, and like that. So gated community. Why? Because when you drive in, every house is an estate. It's not even a home. It's an estate, like out of some movie or something like that. Millions and millions of dollars. So there's places like that, and there's places where it's just a dive, little tiny apartments and difficult and like that. You ever drive around in Tijuana? You ever drive around some of those neighborhoods? Difficult. They're not very, definitely not much urban planning there, right? Not much urban planning there. I remember getting lost down there years ago looking for the temple. Going to go look for the devotees there with Mahabharata, and got kind of lost and so on. So even on this planet, we see there's a huge difference in the manifestation of opulences and so on. And why not expand that to beyond this planet? It's not being required to make a big jump of belief, It's why not? It's believable, it's feasible, it's logical, and the Vedic literatures are describing that. Now, someone may say, well, why can't we see these things? Why can't we see these things? Well, the Vedas say, well, one has to have some qualification, because these are higher beings. One has to have some qualification, just like in our day-to-day life. You can't just go see anyone you want to see, right? Very, very highly positioned people, whether it's political or monetary or whatever, or famous people, they actually have people to keep you away from them, right? Bodyguards and this and that. You just can't go. They don't want to be bothered like that. They don't want to be bothered. And they have their association of people on that same level of influence or wealth or what have you. So we can't even see them. We can't even see them on this one little planet. So what makes us think that we should have automatically have darshan, just like Narada Muni is known as, what's his name? Deva darshan. He's seen by the demigods or those who have the same qualities as the demigods. There's that one, was it Los Angeles temple? Or was it in England where Prabhupada was smiling, the was having a kirtan? Los Angeles. He always has Prabhupada was smiling because Narada Muni was there watching the devotees and just he was laughing. He said Narada Muni was laughing, seeing all the malechas and chanting and dancing in kirtan. Prabhupada could see Narada Muni. Devotees couldn't see Narada Muni. So one has to have some qualification to see even these personalities. So that's not unreasonable, is it? It's not unreasonable. So we have to, whether it's a description like this or so many different things, we have to be humble about our own situation, our own qualifications. How much time have we got? Okay. And that's a very, very important part of spiritual life. To be very, very, and this just a description of the devatas. It's I guess for people in the modern world, it's a new concept for the people in the West that there are demigods, right? There are demigods, but actually, if you go back in history, all over the world, people believed in higher beings, like that, like the demigods and so on, in Europe and so on, and even here in the New World. The idea that there are higher beings controlling things was quite common knowledge, but we become very, very intelligent now. And our idea, which makes a lot of sense, is that everything comes from nothing. Does that make a lot of sense? Everything comes from nothing. Like that. That is considered to be very, very intelligent. They have what they call prehistory or was it pre-philosophy or pre-philosophic or prehistory? That people used to believe in these foolish things, but now we're very modern and very philosophical and logical about what we believe in. And now what we believe is that everything came from nothing. You know what that's called? Maya Pritagyana. Our understanding has been taken away by illusion. Everything comes from nothing. That's the idea. The Big Bang and singularity and just all. That's the explanation. Everything, ultimately, you bring it back, all the way back to this one little point that exploded. And from that, this whole world has come. That's called a leap of faith, isn't it? One reason, the main reason, is there's no science to back that up. Right? It's blind faith. There's no science to back it up. Now, I saw a little something about this. He wrote a book. I don't know if he's a scientist or not, but he was being interviewed. And he said that, and I just said, this man's lying. He said in his book that actually we have all the science to prove the Big Bang Theory. And that's a big lie. That is a big lie. I mean, even amongst physicists, that's a big lie. It's a huge lie. They don't have the science. I don't know how much it's advanced, but I know in the Origins magazine, Sariputta points out all the math, all the math and calculations, if there's a Big Bang, leaves us with a ball about this big of matter. That's all it can account for. Some gases about, that's it. But how expanded into all the varieties and life and so on, there's no science for that whatsoever. They're just, what do you call it, grabbing in the dark? Is that what it's called? They're just looking for something. So, if you want to compare seemingly far out ideas about reality, well, theirs is even more far out than ours. If you think about it, that everything came from nothing, that's a big stretch. That's a really, really big stretch. So that's one thing. One has to be a little bit humble. Now, another point also is when we open these books and read and hear what the Vedic view of reality is, there are things which are way beyond our day-to-day comprehension. In fact, most of it is. Even the existence of the soul, we don't have our day-to-day comprehension of that. But what do the spiritual master, the acharyas, all say that just be patient. Just be patient. There are many, many different things here. Just be patient. Execute your devotional service, and in due course of time, everything will be revealed to you. Krishna says that right in the Bhagavad Gita. Dadami buddhi yogam tam yena mamupayanti te. For those who are engaged in my devotional service, I reveal everything to them in due course of time. So it's all a question of becoming qualified. You can imagine, what did you go to school for? Engineering. Just also? Okay, let's take engineering. So the first day of school, did you know everything about engineering? Big, big books, right? Big, big books. But you just have to keep going through the class, and then you actually come out on the other end with a degree and you understand all those things. But the first day, you can't demand from the teacher that all that is revealed to you on the first day of school. It takes some time. So understanding the Vedic view of reality, the Bhagavad Gita and so on, it takes some time to be patient. And but it's not that we go from 0 to 60 in one moment. Gradually, things start becoming revealed. Krishna reveals these things. In other words, we do have a process of verifying what we find in these books. But as we said earlier, the non-theistic view of reality, there is no way to verify that. There really isn't. There's no way to verify it. In fact, the more and more they look at it, they're verifying that it's not true. How can you explain everything coming from nothing? It's not possible. It's absolutely not possible, and they can't explain it. So that's one thing. And Krishna gives us the intelligence. He gives us the faith. He gives us the realization. All that gradually comes as we're executing our devotional service. I was listening to one devotee who was saying that, actually it was Narendra, a lecturer I was listening to. He was just talking, it was a crowd of people, and he was saying that about chanting, getting everyone to chant. It was a lecture he gave on the Shikshastakam. And he was saying about the chanting, he said, well, you think I'm a fool? He said, I've been chanting Hare Krishna for 40-something years, and I don't feel anything? I don't get any realization? What kind of fool is that? What kind of idiot would do that? You know, the same thing over, and he gave the example because there are a bunch of Indians there about businessmen, about getting a return on an investment. If you have a particular investment and there's no return, how long do you keep your money invested there? If you're smart. If you're smart. Not long at all. There's no investment, no return, you're not getting anything. Move it, sell it, buy some other stocks, right? So he gave that example because they're businessmen. So in the same way, if I'm chanting Hare Krishna and nothing's happening, why would I stick with it? He said, why would I do this, chant Hare Krishna for 40-something years, unless, you know, and he was speaking on the first verse of the Shikshastakam and all the realization you get and the Cetodarpana Marjanam and so on, and the happiness and the bliss, he says, is real. He said, I'm no fool. I'm no fool. So that's the point, is we start feeling something, realizing these different things. So, but it was quite eye-opening about that person I was telling you about who was saying this on some interview. And I was thinking, and the host was just eating it up. The host, and then they brought up unidentified flying objects or, you know, extraterrestrial life. And the host was saying there's all this stuff coming out now from Air Force pilots. It's been out for years, you know, about what they see. And he was saying, well, they're just pilots. Can't trust them. He said, there's nothing out there. Everyone's got, you know, maybe they were like, you know, the altitude got to them or something like that. But there's no proof that there's any extraterrestrial life. They're just pilots. They're not scientists. What do you say? And I was just thinking, who's paying this person to say all of that? You know, who's paying them? So Prabhupada points out, these are the so-called leaders, and so they're keeping everyone in ignorance. You know, I mean, my father, that was back in the 70s, he finished his career in the Pentagon, in the Air Force. And I remember him saying when we were kids, he said, oh yeah, there's all kinds of stuff out there. He said, but they don't want you to know it, because it'd create a panic in human society. You know, so they're keeping the tabs on it. This was, 40 years ago. You know, all the things that they know, you know. So, anyways. The last point is that in our preaching work, we have to be careful that there are certain aspects of Krishna consciousness that may not be appropriate at the particular time and place when we're speaking to someone. You know, just like if you meet someone on Sankirtan today, you don't go, hey, we had a great verse in Bhagavatam class today about Lord Brahma. You know, he came down on this swan, and then these Gandharvas who were flapping their wings and singing to him, and they came to this planet of mountains, and there was this Priyavata and Swayambhuva Manu, and they had this whole, you know, discussion about taking over the earth, who's going to rule the earth, and you don't want to have that kind of discussion. You know, you have to be careful about what you say to people. Everything is revealed in due course of time, you know. According to, keep it simple. You know, just like people may come for darshan of the deities the first time, and they say, what's this? So keep it very, very simple. These are forms of the Lord. And then go on to something else about the soul, and you know, you have to be very, very careful because it could be too much too soon. Like too much too soon. I always tell the story about many years ago we had the dinner program in the temple room. It was every evening, had like about 60 things free. People would come in, prasadam, and then stay for class, kirtan in class if they wanted to. This is about the preaching back in the 80s and 90s, you know, to make devotees and so on. And very, very successful. It was packed every night, especially because we had this massage school over here, and they'd come every single night, fill up the place, Seymour's place. But Gunagai Maharaj was here, and I remember him standing in the back with me over there, and we had he was training up this one devotee, Sadashiva? No, Shivananda. I don't know if you knew Shivananda Sain. I think he moved back up to L.A. Very, very nice devotee, quite eccentric, interesting. But he was speaking, and it was Lord Balaram's appearance day. So guess who starts talking about Lord Balaram in front of all these first-timers? About Lord Balaram, he's Krishna's brother, and Krishna has a mother, and father, and uncle and aunt, and he likes to fight. Balaram likes to fight, and he has a big club, and he cuts off demons' heads. No, what happened was Maharaj is back there going like this, like stop, and he goes, and he cuts off demons' heads. He thought he was a cue, he cuts off demons' head. And Maharaj finally went like this, and he just went like that, and he just walked out the door. Couldn't believe it. He's like, over the top. But he got all excited about describing, Balaram's appearance day, but it wasn't appropriate for that crowd. Like that. So there's a whole universe of information just about this universe, let alone the different levels of devotional service. And it has to be appropriate as it's revealed, just like Krishna in the heart. Here's an example. If Krishna revealed to us right now all the dirt in our heart, what would we do? We'd faint and probably go away. He said, there's no way in the world I'd ever purify myself. If Krishna revealed to us all the work we had to do between here and pure devotional service, there's a good chance we'd just say, I'm out of here. I'll never do it. That's one reaction, right? After you woke up after fainting. So Krishna is revealing to us every day, through directly in the heart or through the other devotees, what we have to work on, but little bit. That's what education is. That's why they have different grades. As our brain matures, we can understand more higher level, better, more sophisticated levels of writing and arithmetic and science and so on. You can't do that to a little kid. They don't understand. But as we get older, we can accommodate more and more sophisticated information in higher levels. So it's the same with devotional service. So we have to be careful. We have to be careful about that in our preaching. There's plenty to say on even the most basic levels, that there's a soul and there's karma and reincarnation and different things like that. And if people don't understand that, what will they understand? Just like the famous conversation Prabhupada was having with that Cardinal d'Anjou in Paris, and they're talking about meat eating. And Prabhupada was just pushing on him about what's wrong with meat eating. And he said, can't we discuss something higher or something like that? And Prabhupada said, if you don't understand this, how can you understand anything higher? If you have no compassion for other living entities and the fact that the animals have a soul, how can you go any higher? Right? You can't go any higher. So, that's a few things to consider like that when we're talking to people. So, any questions or comments on the class today? What do you find? Outside, homeless people? Oh, okay. They like the class, huh? Okay. It's televised over there too, huh? Go
ahead. I could ask, you were mentioning how, perhaps you were saying, before getting to worshiping God or worshiping Krishna as God, first, preliminaries, not all this abominable sinful activity like eating meat in that conversation. And so sometimes that could be a tactic that before discussing Krishna or discussing God at all, kind of discussing more kind of, pious, activity and, things like that, healthy living. And that can be a way to kind of, because if they can kind of, try that, they may have some confirmation that it works, then from there. And then contrast to that, it seems that Vedic culture, or Vedic philosophy is that someone may not, even if someone isn't sold on pious activity, even vegetarianism, you kind of, seems like the preliminary thing is you get them at least worshiping God or some kind of worship of someone, you know. So even before vegetarianism, at least if you're going to eat meat, at least worship Kali or something like that. So it seems, you know, the priority is first some kind of God, and then after that there may be, you know, better and worse activity or sinful activity or pious activity. Could you say anything on that?
Well, that's exactly the point I was making, was that when you're talking to people or preaching to people, you have to find out what level they're at. There's something for everyone in Krishna consciousness. There's something for everyone. And we have to find out where a person's at, and then that's the level we're on also, and to bring them up. But the point is give people as much as they can handle and be very conscientious about what do you think they can handle. But it's true, we don't reject everyone. If they can't accept Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, you're out of here. It's not like that at all. But as our preaching in Kali Yuga is prasadam and the holy name. It's Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's process to purify the heart so we can understand more and more. But everyone should be encouraged. If the only encouragement you give someone is to pop a sweet ball in their mouth, then do it. If that's all they can handle, or to say Hare Krishna, somehow or other we want to begin people's spiritual life, give them as much as they can possibly understand. But to rush that, that's the point I'm trying to rush that is not good. Just like why is it there? Don't preach to the faithless. What happens? Yeah, the glories of the holy name. Or why is that? Because they'll be offensive, like that. Pearl before swine. So don't want to bring it to that point. What did you just tell me? You know, who are those? What? You know, so we have to be careful. Not that we're hiding anything, but we're being intelligent. You know, that's the expertise in preaching. One is very, very expert, like that. So I heard Prabhupada was saying in a lecture. I'll end with this. I've never heard this before. But he was telling, they were Indian, in groups of Indians, he was in Delhi. And he was talking about worshipping Radha Krishna. He said Radha Krishna or Lakshmi Narayan. And he said to them, it's just like this. He said, just like if I'm speaking to a husband and wife. And the wife says, yes, this is a good thing. The husband automatically says, agrees, because it's his wife. Yes. He said, in the same way, if Radharani says, he's a good devotee, Krishna goes, okay, I'll accept him. Because that. Just like a wife says yes, the husband automatically says yes. So he says that's what Radha Krishna, Lakshmi Narayan, because Radharani is the more compassionate and so on. So if she agrees, then Krishna agrees automatically. So Prabhupada gave that example. Wonderful preaching to them so they could understand why is it Radha Krishna or Lakshmi Narayan. So that's the perfect worship. Because if Radharani says everything, then you're okay. Because the husband has to agree. Husband doesn't disagree with the wife. He's got to agree. That's just the nature of the relationship. So Krishna, if Radharani recommends you, Krishna will take you. Okay. So we can end here. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Jai Radhe!